All right, welcome back. On today's episode, we're working with a HoldCo entrepreneur who's executing a platform roll-up using SBA expansionary capital. Super cool model, but even better is the backside of it, which is the exit plan. We're going to get to that and everything else in the middle. Today's episode. Ryan, welcome to Bootstrapping Billions.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I'm really excited to come along with you and share our journey a little bit. Excited to talk with your audience about some of the stuff that we're doing, how they can. Hopefully, I can maybe provide some people some strategies for utilizing the holdco and then exiting through switching over to employee owned, selling the company back to the employees, rewarding them for their hard work.
So on today's episode, we're going to cover a lot. This is going to be a real boots on ground episode. Somebody in the trenches, literally executing this, living this life. We're going to talk about a business, a plumbing business that you acquired. We're going to be talking about how you're leveraging SBA expansionary financing to be able to grow it as a platform. And then we're going to cover ultimately the operational challenges that are really the meat and potato of executing the deal. And then this potential exit strategy that I think is super cool. Ryan, what got you here?
Oh man! So very long story short, my background is in real estate, both on the sales flip side. I was also a general contractor. So I've been in this small business world for entirely too long, hence the gray beard. Just a couple years ago, met my partner John, and him and I, both from the same world, both facing the same struggles that we were going through in real estate, and found this whole ETA thing, and decided that was the best route for us. And so here we are. We're a couple years in, loving it.
Now, that's a pretty unique perspective to take into this conversation. We do see a lot of folks that are in real estate. So like real estate is this separate asset class that a lot of investpreneurs also, circulate around to a certain extent. And then you got folks that are thinking about through entrepreneurship through acquisition or just building a business, right? So you could buy and build ETA, or you could just build a business and start building some equity, get into the entrepreneurial game. Folks kind of vacillate between the two. A lot of entrepreneurs want to get into real estate. Real estate investors think about getting into the business buying game at this point because it's starting to become popular. How did you approach it? So from the real estate perspective, what really got you thinking, like, let me do the business game?
Yeah, the problem that we were trying to solve was just cash flow. In construction, when you're doing a flip, the time between dispersing capital and recapturing is sometimes months and months and months. A lot of stuff could change in that meantime. The market could change, interest rates that affect everything. There could have been an announcement of a freeway construction that wasn't a problem when you bought. Now all of a sudden that's an issue. So there's just all kinds of stuff that's outside of your control. And then like I said, you got the time that you're just putting out capital, hoping to recoup it at the end. And then if market changes, all of a sudden you're not recouping what you thought you would. And so now you're in a pinch. And so we were trying to solve that problem.
Cash flow.
Cash flow was the main thing. Real estate's super attractive for a lot of reasons, but it's not great at producing cash flow unless you're at a scale that, most of us are never going to get to.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what kind of got us in. Although it did require some mind shift changes, going from real estate to business. Business, you don't necessarily always want to buy the ugliest one on the block, where in real estate, that's really what you shoot for. And so there's some minor mind shift stuff, but for the most part, there's a lot of parallels. We just started DivvyShares a couple of years ago, beginning of 24, actually, so almost 2 years ago. And so here we are now.
You guys have done, so you have a pretty unique model. It's a HoldCo model. You believe in building a decentralized HoldCo model, which we'll talk about in a little bit in the episode. And you guys have already done 2 deals?
Yeah, so we've got a plumbing company and a water filtration company. We're hoping to close another one by the end of the year, but the shutdown is making that seem a bit improbable. But that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, life is a very real thing. Talking about earlier, planning according. I mean, dude, it's such a real thing, to be perfectly honest. And it's a journey that, I appreciate you for sharing it because, I think we need more of that, to be honest, on content like this because it's like that's just what it is. And with investpreneurship, we talk all the time about taking a less risky approach to entrepreneurship because it is a risky game and you are kind of putting it all out on the line. So it's like take a less risky approach, to the journey. A lot of people feel rushed all the time. Like a lot of people, get, put into the situation where they sometimes make these. And then, also like job is not a four letter word. It's like it's cool to, get somebody else to pay you to get experience, take all that experience, some of that pay, go reinvest it on the side, get your assets
Yeah.
to match your income and go level up. Like it's all part of the process. And it's cool to see somebody in your situation successful with DivvyShares and the whole code that you're building today, executing strategy, sharing that lived learned experience for other folks that are maybe getting started and they feel like, all right, if they don't do it a certain way, then it's not, they won't look good on social,
Yeah.
which doesn't
You
really
know,
matter at the end of the day.
yeah, I can tell you that holding a 9 to 5 while building Divvy was definitely a challenge. Like it was hard. I had a lot of responsibility. I had, up to 30 people I was managing and, trying to make their lives better while also, on my free time trying to do my stuff. And it was a challenge at times, but I can tell you that definitely, it sped up the amount of time it would have taken for us to build because it made, I was able to, I didn't, wasn't dependent on any income from Divvy. And so what that meant was that, we weren't operating out of fear. Like we didn't have a specific deadline. I didn't have, hey, I'm going to run out of money in 3 months. We need to find a deal
Hmm.
that'll pay my bills. And, there's none of that. So, the more flexibility, that was one of the things that we learned is that finding a deal takes not even twice, probably 10 times as long as you think it's going to.
Yeah. It's like the construction side. Measure twice, cut once. It's gonna be twice as
Yeah.
twice the time, twice the budget.
I mean, the deal, so the company that we bought, it's Blue Planet Plumbing, we just closed on it in May of this year. And that took almost 14 months from the time that we first ran across the deal to closing. We were in and out of like 3 or 4 different LOIs. We were completely out at one point, and then the owner called us back in and, brought us back into the deal.
Is that when it
So, I mean,
closed?
yeah, so that was the
That's when it
final.
pushed down, right?
So,
Yeah.
so what happened, long story short with that, the broker hadn't really set very realistic expectations for what the business was actually worth. And so, once he got, some reality of, what it was actually going to close for, plus we backed out, he went under LOI with somebody else, that fell through. So yeah, and that's when it came back.
Yeah, common. I mean, you could, I've seen the movie, you could rewind the tapes type of thing,
Yeah,
which is cool, right? And that's
exactly.
also when it gets exciting. And when you get to understand those little nuances, you can start playing the deal itself. So you guys closed. It's Blue Planet Plumbing. It's a healthy cash flowing plumbing business.
Yeah, we'll do about 5 million this year. So it's not gigantic by any means, but it's big enough to, it's fully staffed. We've got a general manager there. We've got service manager and sales manager and, you know,
And are
full
you out
office
of the
staff.
day to day? So like tell us what it's like in terms of operating, from the HoldCo level, DivvyShares, and you got Blue Plant Plumbing. Well, you got multiple ventures. Like what's your day to day like and how active involved are you?
Well, I could write a book on everything that's like transpired since we closed.
I'm sure, yeah.
It's been a journey, but like day to day operations, we don't need to be there. There's no point at any time that I've had to go out on a sales call or go install a toilet or answer the phone or anything like that. I mean, that's all taken care of day to day. We're involved, John and I are involved weekly, mainly just because we're what, 5 months in.
Yeah,
And
you're at
so there's,
integration stage. What's been the
yeah, there
hardest part of the integration from moment one to today?
probably that I'll take that a couple different ways. So
Okay.
the biggest change that we've made is just structuring the staff. When we got in, everybody just kind of did everything. Like
Hmm.
all the technicians did everything. Nobody specialized in any particular thing. If the phone rang, whoever was closest to it and not doing anything is the one that answered. And so one of the first things that we did is, set up departments. And so, and really kind of got the folks in the office to kind of specialize in certain things. Like, we have the bills go to a certain person and the phone calls first go to a certain person. And then we have drain technicians and we have service technicians and install and sales guys. Uh, and so that was probably the big change that we've made to date. The biggest challenge.
Operationalizing the business itself. And
Yeah.
was that something going into the acquisition you knew needed to take place? Did you have a plan going into place prior to close?
Yeah, we absolutely knew it. And we had a plan going into it. It changed a little bit, but we had a plan of what we wanted to do. We had, one of the conditions of closing was we wanted to talk to the general manager, because the owner was there. He had a general manager. So we set up a relationship with him, gave him a part of the company at closing to tie him into it. And then we kind of used him like, hey, what have you not been able to do that you've wanted to do that you think should be done? And he had a laundry list of stuff. We kind of added our 2 cents there and got it and just started executing.
How was it? How was the feeling? Like, take us through that day of closing the deal after going through this 14-month journey. Did
It
you
was
feel like
like the
everything
most,
was ending, or do you feel like everything was just getting started?
it was like the most surreal thing ever. That first day, so we closed. There was like 2 or 3 days where, we wanted to be there on a Monday. I think we closed on like a Wednesday or something like that. But we definitely didn't want to like finish out the week and then have people stew over uncertainty over the weekend. So we chose to go there on Monday and meet the team.
Mm-hmm.
And so the owner was there and, me and John were there. The whole team is there. And, the founder, George, he's a very unique guy. And so he had this whole speech written out, right? He's got this speech of like everything that he's been through, building the company up to where it was, how he had taken it as far as he could and kind of why he chose us as buyers and all that kind of stuff. And he does his speech and then me and John do like a little 2-minute kind of, hey, this is what we're going to do and kind of lay out for them what to expect. And then everybody cleared out and went and did their thing. And me and John and George and, Will, the GM, were just hanging out in the office like, okay, well, all right, I guess
That
we're here
happened.
now.
Yeah, that just
And
happened.
then it was literally like
What's
everybody
next?
just went and did their thing. So it was extremely surreal. That day, John and I went to lunch and we were like, man, this is like the weirdest feeling knowing that we A, own a business, and then B, that we don't have to today worry about if this thing is going to close. Like it's finally done and
Mhm.
we can actually start putting this, plan into action. So that's what we did.
Yeah, no, I dig it. I mean, that's awesome it's also awesome to have a business owner that cares because you get different types of stories across the board. And it sounds like that's a pretty good one.
Yeah, George is amazing, man. He built a hell of a company. He loves his people. Like, I mean, I would have been blessed to work for George. And, he's a guy that just wants the best for his people. And when I say that, you know, there's multiple people there that are working there because they gave him good service somewhere. So our top salesman was a busboy at a Mexican restaurant
Love that.
7 years ago, and now he's making 150 grand a year
Love that. Yes.
selling plumbing. I mean,
Love that.
that's George in a nutshell. Like he saw folks and he was like, "Hey man, I really like you. I like your attitude. Do you want to be involved in plumbing?"
Yeah, great
And
people build great businesses.
so that's when you talk about George, that's who he is in a nutshell. So, he's we're glad to have him. We're glad to have a founder like that. And I think that, moving forward as we're buying businesses, I mean, you're married to these folks, right? If they're doing seller financing or if they're staying around operationally, which George did, part of why he chose us is we were willing to keep him around for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So he could, he wasn't getting enough off the closing to fully retire.
Mm-hmm.
And so, he still had some gas in the tank. And so we
Yeah.
gave him that opportunity. But the thing is, if you're going to do that, man, you have to have the right person, and it has to be somebody that you're, willing to take on as a business partner. If you've ever had business partners, man, you really have to be selective with those folks because you're married to them. And once you get involved in a project, it's hard to get out of it.
Yeah.
So,
Especially on
it's
acquisition, and
imperative.
continuity is key, but it can also make or break the deal without a doubt, the way that it's done and the way that you're
Yeah, and
executing it.
it's hard too. There's a lot of psychology in it. You know, George at one point shared with us, because we noticed that he was struggling, so we gave him a couple weeks off,
Yeah.
at his choosing.
Yeah. Huge moment in
And
time.
he he just kind of said, "Man, I'm trying to find a way to share custody of my baby while that person's kissing my wife."
Yeah.
And
Seriously. Like, yeah.
he, and he's
Never
he's
heard
like,
that before, but I get it.
"Yeah, George is a unique dude," and so he was like, "I need some time to sort that out." So he took some time, but
Yeah,
yeah,
we were
it's a tough.
talking before the pod about like the unique challenges post exit. Like it truly is like such a unique moment in time. I mean, you're investing your life into something, and then all of a sudden it's kind of gone from you, and a part of you is gone. And like to be able, yeah, you got money, but money's a short-term motivator for anybody who has it. We already know it's a short-term motivator. There's something that's more important that typically fills the gas tank, whether it's a team, whether it's an active team with people or life in general. So then you lose this thing, and yeah, you got money, but it doesn't really fill the void. And then you got to find this purpose of what can you do with that money, and hopefully, make good timely decisions with it. What you did was awesome, it sounds like. But then you had a plan in place. It was getting operational excellence. And then ultimately, did you have the strategy in place prior to acquisition that this was going to be your platform? So was the game plan always acquire, find a good target, something that we could add some operational excellence to, and then once we do operationalize, be able to build and establish that platform, use the SBA expansionary financing to be able to go and find and acquire and add on additional assets. Was that like
Yeah,
the game plan intent? Like, was that the playbook
yeah, that was
if we go
that was
back
the
14
plan.
months ago?
Yeah, that was the plan. We wanted to find one that really just kind of had a good reputation in its market. And
Yeah,
so Blue
key.
Planet, we were, had a couple thousand 5-star reviews and 4.9 rating. And, we didn't have to do any reputation repair the
Hmm.
day after we bought it. We just kind of rolled right into it. And that was a big part of it and it had, operationally, it did have some stuff that needed to get fixed, but
It was working.
there were some key metrics that were very attractive to us, like average ticket was one. Their average ticket was way over industry average. And so that tells us that, George, what I say is unique. He's a natural born salesman. Like that
Hmm.
guy could sell anything to anybody, and he knows how to do that. And it shows in his team. So average ticket was one that we were like, man, if we can package up some of that strategy and get that out into the rest of the companies, as we acquire, move to different markets or add services or whatever. If we can do that, man, we'll be starting out ahead of the pack.
Dig it. Let's cast out. So let's vision cast a little bit and tie it into the cadence. So typically these platform plays, you have a period in time where your focus is extreme ownership into stabilization. You want to make sure that you're able to service this debt that you just took on with
Yeah.
this asset, hopefully converting it from a liability. Did you feel like post close that you were buying and taking on a liability, or were you taking on an asset in your mind from day one? What did it feel? Because I asked that question with purpose. I asked different folks different times, and it feels different at times.
Yeah. I think it goes in waves, right? So there's at the very beginning, it was super optimistic, and then you kind of realize how much work it's going to take to really straighten everything out, and then you get a little bit pessimistic, and then it's an oscillation, but it's averaging up, but it's definitely there's some oscillations to it. I would say at the beginning it definitely felt like an asset,
Hmm.
like because we have a clear plan that we're going to execute.
Hmm.
So despite whatever shortcomings we discovered once we kind of got really into the meat and potatoes of it, in the end, it's our plan, and we're working it, and
Yeah, life's
one
a
way or
real thing
another,
and nothing's
we're
perfect. There's always hair on the deal, without a doubt.
yeah, one way or another, once you sign that paper, you're in it. So you
Yeah,
might as well just embrace it. And, and if I really look at it, for as much as we've changed and as many improvements as we've made to the company over a relatively short amount of time, I mean, we're 5 months in, and I look at, there's some markers that I look at to kind of tell me whether or not we're doing the right thing. And we've had a couple guys not only close on houses since we acquired, but they started their
that's a good
house
sign.
search. They
Yeah,
started their house search after the acquisition.
statement of confidence. Yep.
Yeah, so that to me speaks volumes to what we're doing, and that people are on board.
What are the key challenges right now?
Um, the big challenge right now is we're trying to navigate the whole lead generation, paid versus organic. Their organic reach was not great when we acquired. 90% of the leads that came in were paid.
Mm.
And so we're getting to the point, we're trying to expand that organic reach. But we're getting to the point where the paid is almost not worth it anymore. Like it's not worth expanding that channel. That's why,
And for the
we're looking.
audience, just help them understand because they may not even know what you mean by that paid versus organic, and then why it's important and why that is a key metric that matters.
Yeah. So the difference is if somebody searches Blue Planet Plumbing versus if somebody searches plumbing repair. And so plumbing repair, you're paying much more for that lead than you are if somebody searches Blue Planet Plumbing, or if they're going right to your website, or if they're just calling your number because they see it on the side of your truck.
Because you're quite literally paying for that
Yeah.
that
So
visibility, the
everybody's
awareness.
at all the plumbing companies are competing for that, plumbing repair lead.
Hmm.
Not we're the only ones that want that Blue Planet Plumbing.
And then that's going to
So
increase your customer acquisition cost,
yeah,
which then
so customer
impacts the
acquisition
margins.
costs, once it gets to a point where it's, 10% of your average ticket, then it starts to be, where it's a bit too cumbersome to be worth the investment.
Hmm.
So we're trying to expand our organic reach. So that's really probably our big, and when you're trying to do that basically from scratch, if there's a weak point with what they've been doing up to date, is that the organic reach is not good. So
But the
that's what
good
we're
thing
trying to
about
expand
that
right now.
is you have a base to build off of, and you have a strong reputation in the market, and that's the ability to leverage from a premium to be able to
Yeah,
execute a plan there.
well, so there's two advantages to that. So A, like you said, we have the base. The B of that is that our company, Blue Planet, is very niche. We do residential service. And so we can, if we expand into a different service, which that's what we're doing through the roll up strategy, now all of a sudden we're in a different customer base. Now we're adding services. It decreases our customer acquisition costs. And so where we're maxed out on our plumbing repair marketing spend, now we're starting from scratch on, if we're able to add HVAC or electrical, now it brings our costs back down in line because those are all new customers and that's a whole new revenue stream.
Love it. And let's talk about that. So for the audience that's not aware, many of our folks I'm sure do, but for anybody that's new to channel, may not be aware in general, when we talk about a roll up, what do we mean?
So basically just having a platform. So like in our case, we're using Blue Planet Plumbing as our platform. And then a roll up is basically, can you bring in additional services, or can you bring in an additional plumbing company that's maybe smaller, where now you're able to gain some market share, eliminate a competitor by rolling them up into the platform. And so you can use that to, like I said, add services. You might also be able to add expertise through their personnel. You're able to add, maybe it's market saturation, maybe it's an additional market, but you're able to do that while keeping your operational costs low, because you might already have, like we already have the operational capacity to probably handle 3 to 5 more technicians.
Hmm.
So if we were able to add a small plumbing company, we could do that and not need to hire any operational staff. We could do that with our current management level, with our current dispatch capacity and all that kind of stuff.
Love it. And so for the audience listening, it's like we break things down typically to your profit engine, your value engine, right? And so the ability to acquire is the ability to potentially grow your profit engine. You're adding additional things that you could sell, right? Additional ways to acquire companies. You can then ascend those customers to be able to cross sell to things that you're already offering, right? So bringing in more revenue into the business. And then that value engine is how you're supporting that profit. And you already have the people in place. You already have the outlay to be able to do it, and you have the capacity to support more. So if you can bring in more profit at the same cost basis, then hopefully that's going to bring more to the bottom line, is the thesis.
Yeah. And, if you're adding services that like your marketing costs go way down because you've already got, like we've got almost 10,000 customers in our database. So if we start doing HVAC, the day that we hire that dude, there's immediately 10,000 messages going out that, hey, now we're doing HVAC.
Mm-hmm.
You've entrusted us already with your plumbing needs. Like, let us work on that air
Dig it.
conditioner.
And your HoldCo strategy. So there's different folks. We had Don Wells Von Folio on the pod a couple episodes ago. He believes in a decentralized HoldCo strategy. Your HoldCo strategy as a platform play is a centralized HoldCo strategy. So the
Yeah.
difference between is essentially what we just talked about on the value side, value engine side, centralizing operations versus decentralizing operations. But you're focused, and you're very specifically focused, and that also ties to the capital that you're using for this expansionary plan, which is SBA expansionary capital. Can we talk about that for a second, and why? Because there's something going on recently that makes a very unique value proposition to lean into this. And for the audience that may not know, good opportunity to teach Train Equipped.
Yeah. So we chose to use the expansion funding. It's easy to attain. You're not diluting. We don't have to give equity away to anybody or anything like that. So for us, it's easy to obtain and it's easy to disperse, right? So, once you get funding, seller gets his check, we go and do our thing. We own the business. We don't have any complications tied to the deal or anything like that. It's also the business that we're acquiring doesn't have to meet, any real specific criteria for us to be able to fund it. So that's the thing too with expansion loan versus getting the initial SBA 7A funding. The expansion loan is much more flexible with the business that you're buying. And it gives us some location flexibility because you don't necessarily have to be in the same market. With where we're at, we can get, so Blue Planet Plumbing is in Asheville. We could actually roll up a company that's in Greenville, South Carolina, which would add a different metro entirely, a completely different market, completely new customer base if we wanted to do that. So it gives some flexibility where now you're adding locations, which obviously we could still use our operational capacity at the main office while running field operations out of a satellite. So it just kind of like provides some flexibility with where you need to be, what kind of services you can buy. Like we could add HVAC, we could add electrical, we could really add like restoration or stuff like that if we really had the opportunity. So it just provides us a lot of flexibility, but really the ease of attainment of the capital is really the main reason that we're going that route.
And there's been changes made to SBA financing over the past year, we'll say,
Mhm.
where it makes this expansionary capital a strategic competitive advantage for folks executing specifically, a structure like yours, as opposed to maybe some of the audience that are just looking to buy their first business. And it's different, and it's something to definitely take into account and consideration and research, right? Definitely due diligence and research for sure. So you got this platform. You acquired Planet Plumbing. You executed on some operational house cleaning, put the right people, right place, right focus, right targets, right outcomes, all of these things that now allow you to have this capacity where you can then allocate the capacity towards additional roll-up acquisition, grow market share, grow the profit engine, centralize the operations with the value engine. And then eventually you're going to continue to hopefully execute this plan with true excellence, right? Diligence down and focus, servicing the debt in which you're taking on and doing so in a profitable manner. And one day you will exit. And DivvyShares has a very unique exit strategy that's tied to the thesis. And I was hoping that we could in the episode kind of bring it full circle. There's a couple of other things that I wanted to talk to if we have time, like just like day-to-day operations of a HoldCo, because you do have multiple assets. And I'm curious just from a personal perspective, how you're allocating time and focus. But to kind of to cover this deal and bring it end to end, truly acquisition through exit. What is the exit strategy?
Yeah. So our exit strategy is actually to sell it back to the employees. So the commonly known as an ESOP, if you've heard that term. And basically, by doing that, our main goal, if we're really looking at what's our end game here, um, holistically, it's we want to create a community of owners, and so we want to use our business, this thing that we're building. We want to use this as a vehicle for helping folks to obtain generational wealth if they want to do that. And so to give them a chance to do that. And so we want people to become owners. We want to help them to actually have a say in their future wealth. And I really feel like too often folks are almost penalized for working for these small businesses. You have somebody that worked alongside the owner, and let's just look at a founder that takes like a traditional exit where maybe they sell to PE or they sell to somebody else that doesn't have this structure. So, and I'll use our company too as an example. So there's folks there that have worked for George for 7+ years. So George 7 years ago was about $1 million shop. And so there's folks there that have seen him go through that growing pain of getting that to a $5 million shop. And they've put in a ton of work and they've had a huge part in getting to that. Now we come in and we're hoping to take that to a $30 million shop. So
That's the goal.
that's
That's right now the goal line.
yeah. And that's attainable with add-in services and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say that we get that to a $30 million shop. That person's now been there for 12 years or 15 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so once it gets to that point, if PE comes in or somebody comes in and buys that business, his employment's not secure. In fact, there's probably more chance that he would be let go than kept, because at that point he'll be at top pay, command a pretty hefty pay structure. And so he gets let go. Now he's starting over somewhere else, right? And so then you have other companies where maybe they don't have a 401k. Maybe they're not getting a 401k contribution from the employer because they're small companies. I mean, these are companies that's not a typical benefit.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, people that are working for companies at this level are typically, they're not set up at retirement. Like they're in a position where they're probably counting on having to work part-time or full-time somewhere basically until they die.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't have, a couple $1 million in the bank,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so what we want to do by doing this is we want to create a wealth vehicle for these folks where they can come in, put in time, gain ownership of the company, leverage their time and effort into additional ownership and be able to retire comfortably, knowing that they helped build a big, beautiful company.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of our goal.
Which is, I think, like a wonderful goal to have for sure. It's definitely tied to our North Star mission as well with what we're doing over at Bootstrapper, Bootstrap Capital, Bootstrapper.ai, without a doubt. So I definitely want to, from a collaborative perspective, we were talking about that show notes earlier from alignment. But what's the constraint, right? So it sounds amazing. If not, why not type of thing, right? Yeah, that sounds awesome. Like, let's do it. But like, why is it not the common approach in a sense? What's the constraint on getting it done? And what needs to be solved in market to make it more prevalent?
Okay. So there's a lot there to unpack. So one of the constraints is that, a lot of investors, they want to exit with a gigantic exit, right? So they, let's say that they help us acquire the business. They want to, say, hey, we need max return on that. We need to really trim down operations, like all the stuff that would lead to, in my example, that person getting laid
Mm-hmm.
off or let go because they're paying them too much.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're trying to solve. And
Mm-hmm.
so, with that not being in our game plan, the ramp is a little bit longer, and it might take a little bit, and probably won't be able to show that epic, EBITDA gain that, an investment, a PE firm might be able to show, because we're trying to retain people and grow them within that ecosystem. And so, when I'm looking at the constraints, the biggest thing that we found right now is just finding capital, finding people that are willing to come along with us on this ride with the, on our mission, and not put that same amount of money to work in PE and get, a marginally better return. So, but we're working out, my partner, John, he's the money guy. And so right now he's, meeting with people and trying to work out a system where our returns can compete with PE.
Mm-hmm.
So we're almost there. I think we'll have something put together by the end of the year. We'll have a full built out pitch deck where we'll be able to compete with that. But right now we don't have it. And
Yeah.
we're
And I
in the
mean, again,
process of putting
something
it together.
definitely would love to collaborate on, but net, it's like potential misalignment of market incentives, right? So
Mhm.
the what I just pulled out of what you just said is, the grab the bag paycheck, get the most is coming from institutionals, and
Yeah.
institutionals post acquisition typically have a strategy in place to maximize the returns on that
Mhm.
investment, and oftentimes that strategy is not 100% aligned with continuity of existing team. And because of that, everyone's almost at odds and it creates friction. But if you could create a grab the bag structure that is aligned, and you can shift the capital model to actually maximize returns through something that is a strategy that approaches that, then you can truly align that capital model and potentially achieve for everybody. And then it's a win-win-win potentially.
Yeah.
And that's kind of sounds like what you're working on, which I think is awesome. Would love to continue to do that. Wrapping it up here, I want to make sure that we, if anybody's listening, they're definitely the Glaries, they're loving the story, and they probably want to continue to follow the story, right? So if they were to want to follow the story and get involved, curious where they could find you, and then if you had one thing that you could ask for right now, what would it be? And let the audience kind of get leveraged.
Yeah. So best way to find me is on LinkedIn. You'll see my ugly mug with my beard on there. Just search Ryan Williams on LinkedIn.
Which will show
And
note that for sure.
yeah, so you can find me on there. I love to connect with folks on there. Try to put out content of decent value on there. So also check out our website, DivvyShares.com, DIVVY shares.com. Check us out there. And then as far as, what we could use right now, honestly, I am super happy just with connections right now. We're trying to expand our footprint a little bit, get our word out there. When I think about our big roadblock right now, it's just deal flow, which that's, most of the folks in ETA and M&A, that's the big constraint. So just deal flow, which that doesn't fix itself. The only way that fixes itself is just by exposure. And so hence just a connection, and then engage with some of the content, and I'd be super appreciative.
Right. So if you're listening to this episode, and I think you put this out there publicly, so I'll call it as well. If anything resonates that you think would be a good deal that hits into the platform play that we talked about today, send it over to Ryan, send it his way, and there may be some sort of, I don't know, maybe a finder's fee or something that could be associated with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I got a bounty up on LinkedIn right now, up to 25K for a deal we can close by the end of the year. You can find that link on there. Reach out. Let me know if you got something in your back pocket, and I can see if we can make it happen.
Dig it. And Ryan, I appreciate you joining us on this episode. Hopefully we can have you back. We could do maybe some recaps, and we could almost like table step it as we continue to build the platform and execute in terms of the game plan. Appreciate it again. Trust the process. Commit to the journey.
For sure, man. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate the time.
If I could do it all again.
Struggling business? It's time to exit with ownership. Join the Exit Studio. Build equity. Unlock capital. Exit with ownership. Keep it simple.
I feel nauseous, believe me. Never had a lot of shit come easy. Had to work hard, struggle just to be me. Had to rise up just so they could see me. Did what I had to do just to feed me. And what was left over I put towards my dreaming. But the only thing in life that has meaning are the things you gotta work for, believe me. Take take into your hands a plan. Your own hands can land your own brand. And damn, I feel like no one takes accountability. They want the credibility, convincingly unwilling to put in the hours it takes to get some power. Don't be fucking sour, take a cold shower, scream until you're louder, work until you're prouder, and all the doubters.
You gotta have that grit, that hustle to make it in this city. Never give up.